Yes. Well, I, John Garrity, am a longtime senior writer for Sports Illustrated in the States. This is my 36th year writing for SI, and for the last 26 years I've been a senior golf writer, covering all the major championships, writing feature stories, traveling around the world, writing about golf courses, writing about golfers. I have a blog called John Garrity's Top 50, in which I use vigorous scientific metrics to choose the best 50 golf courses in the world. And by those metrics, the Carne Golf Links is #1 in the world, sharing that title with Askernish Old in the Hebrides in Scotland. And the reason for that is that these are two of the most dramatic dunescapes in all the world. And they're also two of my favorite types of golf courses, which are natural golf. This is not something that was created with bulldozers and a big budget. This is something where a great man, in the case of Askernish Old, Tom Morris, in the case of Carne, Eddie Hackett, surveyed these spectacular dunes and saw golf holes and created them with the most minimal of construction methods. I mean, literally shovels, hose, and rakes, taking as much as 7 years to do the work. These are really special places. Nothing in modern golf, I think, can match it. And that's why, Carne for me is #1. My favorite golf hole at Carne has to be the 3rd hole, which is probably a surprise choice because it doesn't have as much of the wow type scenery as some of the other holes. But it's a par 4 from an elevated tee to a fairway that I've described as wind-blown silk, because that's the kind of effect you get with the shadows late in the day. It demands a nice solid drive up the middle to stay out of the deep rough on either side. And then the second shot is a pure links approach shot. It's a double tiered green, and the way to get in and up on that upper tier where the flag is to bounce it in. Take 1 or 2 clubs less than you'd think, hit it low, the ball disappears for a few seconds and then comes rolling up that slope. It's one of my favorite shots, and it's clearly my favorite hole at Carne. My book Ancestral Links derives from a conversation I had with the golf architect Jim Eng in the States. He'd just been on his annual golf trip to Ireland, and he told me that he'd encountered a new golf course that was now his 2nd favorite in the world, second only to Ballybunion, the Carne Golf Links. And I said, "I've never heard of it, where is it?" And he said, "It's in the most godforsaken, out-of-the-way corner of Ireland, a little village called Belmullet, that nobody ever heard of." And my jaw dropped, because I told him, I've not only heard of Belmullet, I've been to Belmullet. It's the Mullet Peninsula is where my great-great-grandfather emigrated from during the time of the famine. So as soon as I heard that, I had a great curiosity to know how this remote village could have a world-class golf course. And I mentioned my curiosity to my editors at Sports Illustrated. They said, "Go for it, go and find out." And I wrote a feature story on Carne in 2003 in Sports Illustrated. That was so enthusiastically received that people said, "There's a book in that." And sure enough, there was. And I came to Belmullet in 2007 and spent 5 or 6 months here in a flat and playing the golf course and interviewing people and finding the Garritys, in my heritage, and had a fantastic time and absolutely fell in love with this golf course and this place. It's a very special place in the world. The biggest challenge in playing the Carne Golf Links is keeping the ball on short grass. The wind blows, there's devilish rough on these dunes on either side of the fairways, and that's where you're going to hurt your score if you're serious about scoring, which I of course am not. But trying to keep it in the fairway is a great challenge. And I think learning to play the wind, learning to hit more shots that will fly under the wind or be bouncy into greens instead of playing your United States style, high irons curving one way or the other. It takes a little getting used to, but it's actually more fun than the target golf that we play in the States, and I think it's well worth the effort. I think Carne has to be ranked up at the top of the great links courses, although it's raw. I mean, this is a more natural golf course. It's not a big budget project, so it's not going to compare at this stage in conditioning to your British Open Rhodosites or the Ballybunions or Royal Portrush, Royal County Down, the great golf courses the Great Links of Ireland. That said, it's got the most spectacular routing of any links course I have ever seen. It has more individual holes of character than I've seen anywhere else. It's got 7 par 3s that in no way resemble each other. I've never seen that in a golf course. It's got scenery beyond belief, and it's got the biggest dunes in golf, and there's not even challenging that statement. This is a one-off, spectacular, you have to experience it sometime in your lifetime golf course. I don't think Carne is particularly well known in the States, although its fame is growing, partly because myself and other writers who have visited it have been giving it a lot of attention and publicity. But I think it's moving in that direction for people, particularly for people perhaps who have a bucket list of top 100 courses or mystical golf courses, if I can use that term, the golf in the kingdom type experience. They're starting to hear about Carne more and more and they're saying, this is the place I need to visit if I want to experience that kind of absolutely pure links golf. So I think its fame is growing. What makes Carne Golf Links a unique golfing experience is the dunescape. The Carne banks are unparalleled in the world. I think there's a movement on right now to actually get these certified as the biggest dunes or the biggest dunescape in Europe. And as far as I know, that would hold for the entire world. If there were not a golf course here, it would be worth your time to come and visit and simply walk through this landscape. The beauty of it, it's such a dynamic, almost intimidating piece of land. When you play at Carne, the dunes make you feel small, but then in another sense, when you get up on those tees and the elevations and you look around and you see Broadhaven Bay and you see Blacksod Bay and you see the Atlantic and you see the town, that makes you feel big. It's a grand experience.